Imagine waking up tomorrow to the headline, "The United States invades Venezuela." What would happen next? A quick victory, a never-ending war, or a geopolitical disaster that shakes the entire world? For decades, Venezuela has been a point of tension in international politics. Rich in oil but plagued by economic collapse, corruption, and political turmoil, it's a nation at the center of one of the most complex crises in Latin America. And many wonder, what if the United States, the most powerful military on Earth, decided to intervene directly with an invasion? Today we're going to explore that scenario in depth, not from a Hollywood movie perspective, but from a real-world analysis of what might actually unfold. We'll talk about military consequences, economic fallout, political reactions, humanitarian disasters, and the ripple effect across the globe. So buckle up, because this what if could get darker than you imagine. Part 1. Setting the stage. First, let's understand why Venezuela would even be on Washington's radar. Venezuela holds some of the largest proven oil reserves in the world, more than Saudi Arabia. But decades of corruption, economic mismanagement, and international sanctions have left the country in ruins. Inflation skyrocketed, millions fled the country, and political power struggles turned the government into a fortress of authoritarian control under Nicolas Maduro. For the US, Venezuela represents two things: a strategic oil supplier in America's own backyard, a regime aligned with US rivals including Russia, China, and Iran. So if the US were ever to consider an invasion, it would likely be justified under the banners of restoring democracy, ending human rights abuses, or ensuring regional stability. But would it really be that simple? Part 2. The military scenario. Let's talk military. On paper, the United States could easily overpower Venezuela. The US military budget dwarfs Venezuela's entire economy. American technology, training, and air superiority would crush Venezuela's outdated equipment. But here's the catch. Invasions aren't won on paper. Venezuela has nearly 200,000 active personnel and a population of over 28 million. Add to that the possibility of guerrilla warfare in jungles and cities, and suddenly the easy invasion turns into a long, bloody conflict. Do you remember Iraq and Afghanistan? Both began with lightning-fast US victories, only to descend into years of insurgency, chaos, and mounting casualties. Venezuela could follow the same path: urban resistance, ambushes, militias armed by foreign powers. And yes, Russia or China could secretly funnel weapons and resources to Venezuelan fighters. Would Americans really be ready for another endless war? Part 3. Regional fallout. Now imagine the neighborhood. Latin America has a long and painful history of US interventions, from Chile to Panama, from Guatemala to Grenada. An invasion of Venezuela would ignite massive protests across the region. Even US allies like Colombia or Brazil might hesitate to fully support Washington, fearing chaos spilling over their borders. And then there's the refugee crisis. Venezuela has already seen over 7 million people flee in recent years. A war would push millions more into neighboring countries, creating one of the largest migration waves in modern history. How would Colombia, already struggling with its own issues, handle millions of desperate refugees crossing the border? How would the US respond when the humanitarian crisis it sparked lands on its own doorstep? Part 4. The global response. This is where things get even messier. Russia and China both have significant stakes in Venezuela. Russia has supplied weapons, while China has invested heavily in oil and infrastructure. Neither would be happy watching the US take over a key ally. Would Moscow send troops? Probably not directly, but arms, intelligence, cyber support almost certainly. And China could use its economic power to retaliate against US interests globally. On top of that, imagine the oil shock. Venezuela's oil fields would become battle zones. Production would collapse and global energy prices could skyrocket. Americans already complain when gas hits $5 a gallon. What happens if it suddenly jumps to $10? Would the average US citizen still support the war then? Part 5. Domestic consequences in the US wars don't just happen overseas, they come home too. Every invasion means billions, if not trillions of dollars spent. soldiers returning in body bags, protests erupting in American cities, a divided Congress fighting over budgets and blame. And let's not forget, in an election year, an invasion could make or break a president's legacy. Some would see it as bold leadership, others would see it as reckless imperialism. Either way, the United States would be more divided than ever. Part 6. Possible outcomes. So what are the possible futures? Let's break it down. Quick victory, quick exit. The US topples Maduro in weeks, installs a transitional government, and withdraws. Sounds neat, right? But history shows it's never that clean. Power vacuums create chaos. Think Libya after Gaddafi. Long occupation. The US wins militarily but stays for years to stabilize Venezuela. This drains resources, costs lives, and breeds resentment both abroad and at home. Geopolitical disaster. Russia and China use the invasion as justification to expand their influence elsewhere, maybe even in places the US cares about, like Taiwan or Eastern Europe. The world becomes more dangerous, not less. Which of these is most likely? Honestly, none of them look good. Conclusion. So what would really happen if the United States invaded Venezuela? The truth is, there's no easy win. The US might crush the Venezuelan military quickly, but the aftermath would be a storm of resistance, humanitarian disaster, global backlash, and massive costs at home. History has already shown us Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam. Wars are easy to start but almost impossible to end. And the biggest question of all, would it even be worth it? Call to action now. I want to hear from you. Do you think the US would ever actually invade Venezuela? And if it did, would it be a short, decisive mission or the start of another endless war? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'll be reading them. And if you found this video thought-provoking, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next deep dive into global what-if scenarios. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.